Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. We've been talking a lot recently about mammal to mammal selling, human to human selling, and how it compares against what we're being taught either online or by our managers or through books in that come up with a compelling value proposition, brilliant insight, and wow the other person. But what ends up happening is, first, we've got to get in touch with them. Second, we've got to get their attention. We've got to get their interest, their curiosity. We have to have rapport with them. And these characteristics aren't there yet. And they're not going to be there through an email. So we have to learn how to connect with other people because that's who we're selling to. Yes, they work for a company. Yes, they're one of the elements in a very large sale. But what we're trying to do is automate that at the wrong level in the wrong way. We're going to talk about this in depth today. I think you're really going to enjoy this. Doing a lot of work in this area. It's kind of was the genesis for Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting course, and it's what I teach there. But I think all of us need to remember this because we're selling at the wrong level. It's not that we're not good at it. We're just forgetting that the other person is a human being and then a mammal because we are. And if we forget this, if we overlook it, if we are blinded by our own human mammal needs, we're going to miss the boat completely. So I hope you enjoy this interview. I'm putting these up on YouTube as well. If you'd like to look at it in a video, get an image of my pretty face and the guest's pretty face. That'd be powerful. I'm also putting up funny videos there as well. And make sure you're checking out the Brutal Answers to Your Sales Questions podcast. So just search Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, and check out Co-Video. Co-Video is one of those ways to go from text to video, because when you see the person, you know it's a person. You know it's not a robot. You know they put some level of energy and effort into communicating with you and that they want to get to know you. And that's how we become human. Video has blown up my business in the last year and a half. I go back in my timeline on my Amazon photos, and it was pretty much this time last year that I started doing LinkedIn videos, and all of a sudden I tripled the number of followers. The podcast is exploding, and connecting with people because people feel like they know me now versus putting out a text post that even though it gets higher ranking on LinkedIn, it doesn't get the engagement that video does. So I stick to video, and I'm trying to incorporate empathy and humor into it as best I can so that people can kind of see some of the ridiculousness of what we're doing today in sales and the obvious reasons why it's not working and what does work. So give video email a try. Check out covideo.com. Tell them Brian sent you from the Brutal Truth podcast. Let's get into the interview, and I'll sum it up at the end. Hey, Anita, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Brian, I'm super excited to be here. I am a sales performance consultant and coach. I live just outside of Chicago. I've been in B2B sales support and direct sales, for over 20 years. Please don't do the math in your head. And I am a huge sales advocate for sales professionals. I love to help sales professionals and sales leaders succeed. And I'm a mom surviving 2 teenagers.
Wow, that's a lot, huh? Now, you went and wrote a book. Why'd you decide to do that? That's a lot of work for a salesperson.
Boy, is it a lot of work. And so, I do a lot of coaching, and I moved from direct sales into sales coaching and performance consulting because it just turned out that I felt a lot happier doing that, helping others succeed. And there was more of a fulfillment. Like I knew I could make my targets, but when I was able to help somebody else make theirs, that's where it was meaningful to me. And so I think, I love what I do. It's pretty much what I can say.
And is that psychology degree paying off? Is that really helping?
Yes. So I used to joke all the time that I want a refund. Like, who do I call for a refund for my psychology
That
degree?
doesn't work though, does it?
It doesn't work out. And now I'm like, geez, I'm glad it didn't work out because that stuff is really helping me out. So yeah, in the book, I mean, I wrote the book basically because reps kept on coming to me and saying, dude, you need to write a book, right? Like that became the conversation. And, it was something that they saw in me and they helped me actually realize that that's something I needed to do.
And I think you touch on a great topic because there's a lot of people in sales trying to automate it. And the more we automate it, the harder it's getting for most of us.
Yes. And confusing and complex and all those things. Yeah. Technology is great when it works and when it's serving the purpose of helping whoever that human being is become successful or achieve their objectives. And I believe that there's definitely a place for automation, AI, machine learning in sales, 100%. But the robots aren't going to take the job of B2B sales professionals who are out there, working hard to know their customers and make their customers be successful. And so I think there's a balance there between using the technologies to help make you more efficient, but knowing that you're going to be most effective when you're leveraging what's really human about you.
But that's it, because the problem wasn't how can I send more emails faster?
Yes,
The problem is how can I get to talk to more people?
Exactly. And what am I going to say to actually get their attention, right? And that's on me. I mean, there's no automated program that's going to say something is going to tell me what I can say to matter to my customer. And so as long as the human being is buying, I think we're good, as long as we make sure we're very human in our sales process.
And that's it. And the technology could have been used to find out what they care about instead of us coming up with a 5 or 50 step cadence to torture them to either put your hands up or I'm going to keep going.
Well, yeah, interrogation, right? Like that's one of the things that drives me bananas. I'm an embedded coach, so I go out on calls with some of my clients and they have their little discovery list and they'll start asking them. And I'm just like, I want to facepalm for that customer myself because they feel like they're in the hot seat. So it's about really learning and listening and being curious and genuine in asking those questions. The minute they think you're going through a script, you're done. You're just a sales dude.
We get put in what I call the rep zone. It's like, in relationships, you have the friend zone.
Yes.
Where, once you're in there, you ain't getting out.
You're not getting out. Exactly right.
Don't know why. It's just part of us mammals.
I love that. Yeah, that's so true.
But in sales, if we act transactional, I'm the sales rep, you're the client, let's do our dance.
That's right.
And the number 2 problem I hear from reps is the radio silence.
Yes.
That, okay, I got in, they're interested, they need it, want it, and can afford it, but they're not communicating.
Yeah.
And the reason is they don't need you from a transactional standpoint.
Exactly. And someone outdid you, right? Someone outsold you. I mean, that's might be exactly what's happening. And they don't want to tell you.
They don't have a question. Right? They don't have a need to give a proposal. And they think of you as a rep.
That's right.
Instead of that, when you had that opportunity to be able to talk to them, not just about the product, the problem, the gap between where they are and where they want to be, but you could talk about the industry, their career, what other people are doing, all the other things that come into play that aren't transactional.
Yeah. And create the safety, right? So one of the things I try to teach reps is go in there and figure out what is motivating that customer, because sometimes their career could be on the line, like their personal image that their company has of them. Treat it with care, right? So make sure that you are creating an environment of safety so that they know you are not going to let them look a fool.
Yeah.
And once they feel that, it's going to be a lot easier for them to commit to you and make and keep small commitments, like following up on emails and actually answering your calls. One of the things I say in the book, I've got a list of questions you can ask yourself is, are they answering my calls? Like if they are, then you're getting there. You're going to be a trusted guide, an advisor, and advocate for them. If they're not answering your calls, you got to ask yourself, okay, what can I do better to really matter to them?
Right. And one of those things is, kind of be able to talk to them about what they care about beyond just the product. And people are like, well, how about if they can talk to my manager? Well, they don't. Why would they want to talk to your manager? We got to understand that this is a long multi-step process And how are we going to prevent it from getting stuck?
Yeah, exactly. Human beings don't make decisions on eeny, meeny, miny, mo, right? There's a million different factors that come into play. And I'm here to say a lot of those are emotional. So you can get past your features and benefits and your product and your company value. And yay, good, that's table stakes now. But where you've got to differentiate is, who are you? What do you stand for? And why does that matter to that customer?
Yeah. And how do you build that trust so that they will answer your questions?
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you coach people through this? I'm sure the book probably helped you clarify it and just get it out of just a list of great ideas into a bunch of pages of great ideas.
Yeah, it's fun because a lot of one of the things that was important to me in writing the book, which of course Beat the Bots, is that it's a lot of stories. I've learned couple of things about sales reps, having been one and having worked with so many. They don't have time to read a lot of data or interest, right? Like they're not trying to read a new multi-step methodology that they're supposed to learn. It's just not going to happen. So it's stories. I call them trench tales, and it's stories either from when I was direct selling or when I was as an embedded coach, which of course that's the person that goes out into sales calls with you to just kind of see how you're doing. And so that's the start for me. Just like I tell them to go do discovery, my discovery is learning exactly how they're approaching their customer in that environment. And then I come back and say, okay, listen, you acted like you were really stuffy in that conversation. What is going to make the customer pull their defenses down if your defenses are up so high? Yeah. And so it's those things. It's starting with learning who they are, what they're doing, and how they're approaching it. And same you got to do with your customers. Who are they? What are they trying to do? And how are they approaching it? And you got to jive with that.
Yeah, you kind of roll with it.
That's it.
Yeah. And what are people getting out of the book? Anything that you surprised about, or?
Yeah, it's funny. So, you write a book and you're like, I hope some people read it. But I have been utterly overwhelmed by the response to this book. I mean, and truly, just humbly, I had no idea how many people were going to read this. And I've been getting emails and texts like, hey, I use this and I use that. And the book has only been out for a couple of weeks. And these people are doing it. And one email that I got was so meaningful to me. It was about how I teach in the book. I talk about, if you can do nothing else, if you think I'm full of crap for all the things I've written here, please just take this one. Before you go into your customer, 5 minutes in the car, ask yourself, what do I have to do to strike a chord with them on an emotional level? What do I need to do to give to them from a rational level to earn the right to ask the emotional questions? And so one gentleman sent me an email and he said that he took that and put it on a Post-it note and put it right in his car. Yeah. And that he looked at that every time he went to a customer meeting. And so at that point, it's like, you know what? It worked. What you wanted to have happen with this book, it has worked. And I just wanted to help. And people are using his stuff. So yeah, it's extraordinary.
And that's it. And I think today salespeople need micro-learning. That the days of the 2-day workshop, and they're going to, accept somebody else's view of how to sell. Yeah. Or change their personality.
That's it.
It ain't gonna happen. I think
they'll chew you up and spit you out. I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah, and I think that's why podcasts work. Is people can listen to it, get a couple of little things, and then start building out their game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell them, I say, first thing in the morning. I know that a lot of you guys don't have a ton of time to read books and, listen to books on tape, but do this. Listen to a podcast. Pick one podcast to listen to when you're getting ready in the morning, brushing your teeth, and have that be the mindset that you go into the day with, right? And I think that's so important. It's something I've been doing for years, whether it's podcasts or just listening to a book on tape. It is micro-learning. It's learning when you have an opportunity and not so heavy, not like taking me out of the field for days on end. And I'm going to forget everything after I leave this class. So it's a much different way of learning.
Yeah. And I think, especially when you do interviews, because I used to love Audible books and I still listen to them quite a bit, but I've kind of switched to podcasts. Mm-hmm. I'll even take the author and I'll search a bunch of interviews.
Exactly right.
Because the Audible book is really polished.
Yeah. And I just want the real person. I want to hear what their story is.
Yeah, a little interaction, a little Q&A, where the person's kind of caught a little off balance and has to think on their feet. And it's a little bit more organic. is
Yeah.
really good. Now, when you're coaching reps, what do you typically see? What's the kind of like the number one consistent thing?
So in terms of what is troubling to me, consistent thing is that people will go in, like we talked about before, with that discovery script, or they go in with a great intention of being curious and learning about the customer. But the minute they get an answer that they don't know exactly what to do with, they get nervous. And then they go back to their silly little script of questions and then back to interrogation mode. And I think one of the things that's hard for me to make sure I get through to them is, it's okay. If you get an answer that you're kind of like, I don't really know where to go with that, that's okay. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Don't let it shake you to the point where now you feel like you have to start reading bullets on a slide. Just don't do it.
And are they able to build that rapport with people kind of genuinely, or is that something they have trouble with?
I think a lot of people do have trouble with it. And the guys that I think are going to beat the bots, right? The guys and gals are the ones that go in there and don't go in there as super stuffy professionals or like that slimy, sneaky, shady sales guy that people think of in their mind when they think of salespeople. It's on us to change that reputation. The way we do it is by going in there, being real, showing them that our purpose is to help that customer make the right choice and give them glory. Yeah. And in order to do that, I got to know what glory means to them. And so that's what we have to get the reps. That's the mindset reps have to go into the call with. And I found when they do, the questions do flow a lot easier and it's more natural. It's not a script. It's let me learn about you.
And so that's kind of a curiosity mindset. And what I've learned is a lot this year about is this outward mindset, being able to empathize with somebody else, put yourself in their place. What's their day look like? How do they get rewarded? How do they get punished?
Yeah, absolutely. How do they make money? I mean, what's their bonus going to be on? Right? That's important for me to know so that I can help them get there. And what happens is when you go in with that mindset and that empathy, people catch on. Like they can sense when someone is being sincere and genuine and wants to serve them. Yeah. Once that happens, there's some kind of magic switch that goes off and they now trust you. And now you're not going to have a problem getting them to take you to their boss or their peers because they know that your only goal is to make them look good. And so that's where the curiosity ultimately gets you, is showing them how much you care.
Yeah. And I've always had this analogy of kind of a Sherpa or, a bellboy is really not the right because it has a low status where you're carrying the bags. Yeah. But if you've ever gone into like a super nice hotel, well, as soon as you arrive, somebody takes your stuff, they walk you to the front desk, they take your keys, they show you how to get to the room, they set the room up the way you want. Yes. They ask, what kind of food do you like? Are you into the gym, the pool, the sauna, the spa? What's your bag? Yeah. And I think that's what we're doing with deals. Instead of this super persuasion and lock them down and tighten them up, handle every objection.
Yeah, it's personalized. We're personalizing it. I love that example. So hotel is a perfect example of how hard companies work to personalize experiences for their customer. And guess what? B2C expectations are coloring B2B expectations. People that are able to go out there and, have a customized experience with even a movie theater, they want more out of their interactions in sales, whether it's B2B or B2C. And so it's on us to figure out what are the ways that I can personalize this experience. One is just by being you and being that guide. And then two, what's going to make it easier for them? How do I get this process to work with what their needs are? I mean, you keep on hearing me say this. It's them. It's about them. It's it's the customer. And the sales professionals that get that are the ones that are ultimately going to be immune to anything that AI could throw their way.
And that's it, because AI, I think we've just used it backwards.
Yes.
The scraping to get the data, put it into a list, spam people with our messaging about what we care about, not engaging anybody, not talking about what they care about. Because I'm sure anyone did any research before they go in the meeting. You can find out what school they went to, their family situation, where they live, probably their sports if they're into it, what books they've read.
Right.
Just their wallpaper that they use on LinkedIn.
That's right. That's right.
Sense of who they are.
Yeah. And that'll feed your curiosity.
Feeds your curiosity, and it doesn't have to be the fish on the wall thing, but it can be something to get into their head.
That's it. And
break through that ice.
You're 100% right. And I talk about it a lot, but get into their head, get into their mindset of where are they, and meet them where they're at. And it's funny, like, you have to be able to ask the right questions and do it without being creepy. This is where it gets tricky sometimes, right? So if you've got a rep who's going to go in and immediately go for, so what's your bonus structure? That is creepy. And they're going to get kicked out on their ear, right? Like, that's not going to jive. Yeah. Oh, exactly. Or, well, there's a great story in the book about that, about how a rep was found out from another friend that there was the client or prospect that he was after coached a team, like a soccer team. And so he decides to enroll his daughter into that soccer team. And so now he's there trying to talk to that coach every day. And the coach is like, I know what you're trying to do. And no, it's not okay. And so, it's one of those things where use your common sense. Don't be creepy, right? And some people, it's a blurry line, but I try to get that clear to them.
Yeah. And I think that it keeps coming back to that inward mindset versus outward mindset. And if you can't make that switch, and I think people got to start looking for this in the interview process.
That's right.
The people who are asking about vacation time and your dog policy and what kind of cake do I get on my birthday?
That's it. Exactly.
That's all about them.
That's right. And anywhere, if we go out and just try to buy something, you don't go into Best Buy and try to buy something and have that person talk all about them and what matters to them. And here's all these products. And it's mind boggling. And then you run away. You leave and you go buy it from Amazon. That's what happens. So we have to avoid that in our world. We have to make sure that we're interesting, that we're curious, that we're caring and authentic, and we engage that customer.
And how do you keep the ball rolling so that you say you have that great meeting and I have this analogy, the pile of great ideas.
That's right.
It's not that your product's bad or they're buying your competitor. But they have 50 other things they could do with their time and money.
That's right.
And yours is on the list, but it's not top.
That's right. You get it to the top by making it about what you create value-wise for them. Yeah. So you got to learn what value means to them. And then you have to be able to convince them in a short time, sometimes a meeting, that you are trustworthy and that you will deliver on what value means to them. I work a lot with technology sales professionals. And one of the things that's so pitiful to me is they'll go in and they'll start talking about digital transformation, for example. It's like all the buzzword everywhere. And it's almost like a drinking game at this point, right? So they go out there and they just ask about digital transformation, and the customer, that phrase means something so different to everybody, every single person. Yeah. So you just to go out there and try to, talk about, hey, we're here to help you with digital transformation. No, you're not, because you don't know what that means to me. It's presumptuous, and you won't get that trust when you do something like that.
Yeah. So I think I try and teach, break the process into more smaller pieces, because there's going to be time gaps on their side.
Yeah, that's right.
They have to build consensus. They have to justify it. They have to keep the ball moving. And if you go in, present, demo, propose, you've already put the prenup on the table.
That's exactly right. And they're going to run.
Engagement ring, right?
And they're going to run. They're going to be like, that engagement ring's not big enough. Bye-bye. Right?
That prenup's too tight. Yeah.
Exactly. So you want to give them enough so that they know the value, but you don't want to bury them in the details early on. What you're saying, break it into smaller pieces, pace yourself, do it in a logical sequence. Like, again, going back to being creepy, don't try to have, customer intimate type conversations when you've only just met them. Make it step by step. And that's hard, right? And one of those things that we're taught early on is you have to slow down to speed up. But it's hard. When you're a sales rep and you're out there and you're a go-getter and you want to see that commission check, it is darn hard to slow down. And that's a huge thing that I have to train within my classes and when I do coaching.
Yeah. And how do you do that though? Do you just explain what they have to do on their side?
Yeah. That's it. So I explain what they need to do. I give them examples, and then sometimes I get to do the in-opportunity coaching, right? So I'll go out on the first couple calls and then I'll say, okay, what do you think would be a good thing to do? You're not meeting with them again until 2 weeks. How are you going to approach this? The wrong answer is send a quote or a proposal. This is the wrong answer, right? But I'm appalled at how many times that comes across. And these blind, That's it. Well, and oh my gosh, the blind quotes. Like, let me just send over a quote in
Unsolicited proposal.
I mean, nobody who wants that. Nobody wants that. So, right, exactly. And so it's like, you know what, just take a moment, think about what would be a thoughtful thing to do. What can you do to make sure that they remember you in this conversation, right? What's something that you learned that you can go back and say, hey, guess what? I was reading online and I found this article and it totally reminded me of our conversation. Keep in their line of sight, but don't be obnoxious about it. And so find the things that make you show them that you're thoughtful is what I would say.
Well, that's it, because you brought up digital transformation. It means a bunch of things.
Oh God.
But you know, the end goal is beautiful. It's nice, you know, and they probably care about some part of it, and it affects them from their career, their day-to-day life, being able to continue that conversation.
Yes. Yep.
Ask them. It's not about your product. It's about their job and what they're doing and about their career.
That's right. Ask them. Ask them, what does digital transformation mean to you? It's so simple to me. Just ask them. And then just watch the floodgates open. You will learn so much more than you ever could imagine by just asking them to go into their definition and their mindset. And in there, you're going to find nuggets that are then going to help you tailor your messaging and share your product value with them in a manner that matters to what they've just illustrated for you.
And a lot of people view that as a wasted time, but it's like, no, I don't think people understand what's going on the other side there.
That's right. Yeah. What are you expecting to get out of digital transformation? How can I expect to present to someone about digital transformation or cloud or any other technology or any other solution if I don't know what they're trying to get out of it?
Yeah.
Mind-boggling, right? So going in with a slide deck about this is what we do, this is how we help you transform, that's not okay because you don't know what transform means. For some people, digital transformation means, just coming into the century and having IP phones or something of that nature, just changing basics. And other companies, it means completely doing an overhaul of how they run business. So you got to know.
And I like the two things that you said, but the preparing before the call. Because I used to ask myself, and when I became a manager, I would ask the rep, how do you think it's going to go? And when I heard, let's see how it goes.
Oh, God.
That's not what I asked.
Wrong answer.
It's like, would you walk into a bar, see how it goes? You think
exactly.
Goes into a house, let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes.
If they're armed or not.
There's no such thing as let's see how it goes, because then how it's going to go is bad.
Yeah. And what ends up happening is, okay, do they know who we are? Are they looking at anybody else? Is it warm? Is it cold? What do they know so far? How long has the people been here? Mm-hmm. What do you think their priorities are? I mean, and you can kind of pre-game the sales call. Yeah. And then if you write that down, and then after the call, you go, how well did we predict that call? And how could we have done it better? Did we check out their website, their LinkedIn profile? Did we Google their news, see what they're talking about? Did there any new players in there?
That's it. And going in there and just asking the right questions about that without being creepy. But here's the other flip side of that I find interesting is sometimes, we focus so hard on doing the research on the customer that when we go in there, we forgot that the customer is researching us. Yeah. So we better know what our online profile, whether that's me as a rep or what the company, I gotta know what Glassdoor is saying about my company, because I promise you my customer does, right? If they're taking me serious, they're looking at things like that out there online.
It comes up like one or two.
That's right.
You see a 2-star Glassdoor and you're like,
whoa. Yeah. And they're going to ask you, if they are serious, and they should, right? If they're serious, and if this is truly something that's going to be a fruitful relationship, they need to know, why is that a 2? And so just make sure that you go in not only knowing about the customer, but be very self-aware in terms of what your reputation is online and what the company's reputation is online. Because the last thing you want is to go in and talk about something and have the customer say, well, wait, that's not what I saw on your website. Your company website says X, Y, and Z. I've had that happen in a sales call with a rep once, and I wanted to crawl under the table. It's like, oh man, you got to know what your story is. You have to know it cold.
Yeah. And that postmortem,
Mm-hmm.
I had a manager who was adamant about it early in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much, and it wasn't just a 5 minute in the car. It was
Yes.
back at the office, whiteboarding out the org.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
after it, I go, I didn't pick up any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They were bringing up like, why'd they ask this? And that's a red flag. And
That's it.
I don't think they've won this project yet. And
Yeah, that's it. And it's about like just going back and evaluating yourself. And that's something that really is important, I think, in learning, and especially in when we're trying to differentiate. It has to be a constant expectation of improving yourself, your
yeah,
craft, improving your approach. All of those things, you have to work on it. And I love it when sales leaders do postmortems. I think that's brilliant. And at that point, that they're not just worried about the number; they're worried about growing that sales professional. And those are the kind of sales leaders that I love working with.
yeah. And it's not about what you did wrong. It's what happened.
Yes.
Did you think we missed something? What is the next step? How do you think this is going to play out?
Yes.
Because I always look at like the pipeline day one of a quarter and then the
Yeah. Yes. It's a phenomena.
right. And then you're like, well, what if our judgment was better? Because I think, judgment is a superpower of a salesperson.
That's exactly right.
What to work on and what order.
Yeah. Yeah. And
talk
prioritization.
about the application of AI.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. And so some people are using AI to like record. There's I forgot the name of the company, but I was at a conference recently and they talked about this tool that it listened to sales conversations, the recordings, and it talked about the tone, the inflection. It analyzed who was asking more questions, the rep or the customer. And now that's a way to use AI and tools to really help you up your game. I'm all in for that. Those bots can stay.
Yeah.
Right. But it's we just need to make sure that it's there to serve the sales rep in a way that's going to help them improve their craft.
Yeah, cool. So if somebody invested in the book and read it, what would they get out of it?
They would get some insight on how to use who they are and what they stand for and make that the differentiator. They'll learn a thought process. I don't believe in checklists and, long methodologies. It's just, this is the kind of stuff you guys have to start thinking if you're going to be able to succeed in the long run. And it's all encapsulated in there.
Cool. And what formats is it in? Kindle, paperback?
Yeah, Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook to be coming later this year.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
And on Amazon, I assume?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. See, I think we make the mistake in sales of we either know it or don't know it. And the thing is, you know it. If you were to give a quiz to salespeople, I bet they get an 85, 90% ranking. Does that mean they can sell? No. It means they know how to sell. But since sales is a performance profession, not a knowledge profession, it's not like accounting, where you take an accounting test and you now know how to do accounting. In sales, you now know how to sell, but can you sell? Because you have to stand up and do it every day. You have to show up and do it every day. And today we think, we can just automate these email messages. And, automation's a good thing if you do it right. Automation is just faster rejection if you do it wrong. I call it doing dumb things faster doesn't make you smart. So we have to really dig in and connect with other people and talk about them and what they care about. And not just what they care about that's in my best interest. This is where we're blinded and why sales is a counterintuitive profession, meaning that it runs against our natural instincts. Our natural instincts are, here's what I have, here's why you should buy it, buy it. Why aren't you buying it? Let me handle those objections. Let me tie you down. How's that working for you? As opposed to understanding how people think, building the rapport so they do communicate with you. People say, well, likability is not a necessity. Well, it is if you want them to talk to you. Because why would they talk to you if they don't like you? Why? Only if and when they need and want something. And those touch points are too far in between. Because by the time they realize that, it might be too late. Somebody else might be in there already giving them the things that they want, need, and like to have. So if you think that the other person is a persona, is an employee, you've got it wrong. It doesn't mean it won't work sometimes. And this is what's crazy about sales, is that everything works once in a while and nothing. It just works sometimes, and we think it's a positive thing, and it's a false positive thing, and it gets in our way. Think of all the counterintuitive things about sales. Listening is counterintuitive. We think that sales is about talking. Well, the best salespeople are the best listeners. The people who give do much better in sales than the people who just take. What do we think? It's the takers. No, it's the person who understands that every human interaction is a give and take process. Now, these things aren't going to come to you naturally. You have to consciously develop these skills, these awarenesses, and practice them. And that becomes the hard part. Too many of us say, I know that, Brian, and I do believe you know that, but are you doing it? Are you integrating it into your daily process? Do you have a daily process? Do you have a sales process? Not a rigid step-by-step, but a general flow of how it goes, so that you're not doing Groundhog Day every day and not benefiting from the previous day, what I call compound selling. These are all things that will make you great. Otherwise, what ends up happening is everyone finds one thing, they become really good at it, it works for them reasonably well, and that's okay if you want to be a B player. If you want to be an A player, you've got to round out your game, be super good at least one thing, but be okay at the others, and at least aware that you need to do them and you need to get a little bit better at them. I talk to sales leaders all the time, and they get stuck on like one little thing, and they think that's all there is. And that's a natural thing. We cannot think consciously and concurrently about 20 or 30 things because we're human. 3 to 7, they say, is the max. So that means anything more than 7, you got to get out of your head and put onto paper somewhere. Have it stored somewhere other than in your head, and be able to practice, since it's a profession of performance, not of knowledge. Too many people think it's knowledge. And that's why managers all think they're geniuses. They have the knowledge. They have the little pipeline and forecasts and their standard 6 or 7 questions. And the good part about that is they're not locked in the fog of war of the deal, so their questions will help us get focused. But they don't see the bigger picture. They don't understand the nuances of what's going on in the sale. So, hey, go to b2brevenue.com. Check out the courses under training. There's a tab there. There's one to get on my calendar to talk it over, see if it's a match. All I ask is, 1, you show up at the time, pick up the phone since you scheduled the call. 2, that you listen to at least 3 episodes and kind of self-qualify yourself. This sounds like the type of sale I'm in. I need help either getting into new accounts at scale, or I need to get my game on the complex sale honed down. And I don't care if you've been selling for 20 or 30 years. I'd bet a year's salary you don't have any of it written down. I bet it's all in your head. And yes, you're a smart person, and it works probably 60, 70% of the time. But when it doesn't, how much does that cost you? How much does one lost deal cost you? Don't even look at the cost of the course, I'm telling you. It's peanuts compared to what you will get out of it. Taking your game to the next level over a year-long period, where you can talk to somebody about your deals, do deal therapy on it. Wouldn't it be great just to talk about a deal with another sales guy? Somebody whose only motive is to help you win it, and to hear other people's conversations about it? Too many, we just think, oh, I know that. Good reminder. Well, it's a performance. What you think a comedian comes off stage and goes, oh, good reminder. No, that they practice over and over again. I don't know if you watched Seinfeld's Netflix series. He had Eddie Murphy on there. Now, Eddie Murphy at the time was probably the best comedian in the world for a long period of time. Stand-up, movies, and now he just likes hanging out with his kids, and that's okay. But there's talk of him coming back, and he's worried about it because of the performance. It's not that he doesn't know how to be funny. The guy doesn't know how not to be funny. The issue is, can he perform at the level that will justify the attention and the interest? And I got to tell you, I got bored watching the interview. Why? Because he was so laid back and he was so out of practice. And you're talking to, Seinfeld's biggest fan and Eddie Murphy's biggest fan. And I turned it off. The performance was terrible. Because it wasn't meant to be a performance. It was meant to be two friends sitting down having coffee. Well, that might be interesting for a little bit, but I got bored. Performance sucked. That means, imagine what we have on a bad day, on a day when we don't prepare. Sales is a performance. I'm banging on it, I know, because I need you to understand it. And if I give you a different perspective on it and different ways, you'll get to connect with it. Appreciate everybody who's sharing my content on LinkedIn. Check out the YouTube channel, Maverick Method, all one word, on YouTube. I put up all the videos and the podcasts in both video and audio format. We'll see you next time. Appreciate your support. Tell a friend about The Brutal Truth.